Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And today I am really excited to have Danielle Hughes back in the guest chair. And it's not just because our companies are kind of business twins. Her website is More Than Words Copy, and we've laughed about that over the years, but because I think she's a smart marketer. She's doing some really creative work right now with helping companies define and clarify for their employees the best practices on LinkedIn. But she's always got great ideas. But I'm going to turn the tables on her just a little bit this in this interview. You okay with that, Danielle?
I am. I'm ready for it.
Because today we're going to talk about what went wrong. A marketing program that sounded like a good idea at the time, but maybe didn't turn out quite the way you thought. So, Danielle, what went wrong?
Oh, okay. So I think like maybe 2 years ago, maybe, who knows, what is time? I had this idea to do a Voxer coaching program. So for if your members don't know what Voxer is, it's like an audio app and you can kind of share things asynchronously. And a lot of coaches use it. I'm not a coach per se, but there is like a coaching aspect to my business because I do personal branding. And one of the things that I had always thought about was a lot of my work is sort of one and done. I work with someone on their brand, we build it together, and then the goal is, I've taught them how to fish so they can go out and do it on their own, right? And I thought, well, how do I get people who might need a little bit more support, but don't want to like schedule time with me? It doesn't want to feel like an obligation. So I thought I created this like 3-month Voxer coaching program. And the goal was that we would have asynchronous communication, and they could still share content with me and get me to help them with their content and write it. But it was much more, you're struggling with something, you want to post something, you need an instant answer. How do you kind of reach out? And I thought, God, like everyone always wants access to the person, right? That's why we all pay the money to work with experts, is we want access to the expert. And I put together 2 different packages. One was like a little bit less expensive. One was a little bit more based on the amount of touch that they would get. And I promoted it and I promoted it and I promoted it, and just crickets. And it never took off. And I would tell people about it and nobody really was ever interested.
So, looking at that, what do you think the stumbling blocks are? Was it that it wasn't right for your audience, or that people really didn't want asynchronous coaching? Where do you think this kind of fell apart?
I don't think it's the audience. I think it's me. I think when people want to work with me, they want to work with me either in real time or have me working on their messaging and their materials. That's why they hire me. And I don't think that I conveyed that even though this was audio and asynchronous, that there would still be elements of me doing their writing and doing their editing. And I think it just felt like if I wanted to do that, I would do it with another coach. Like if I'm going to hire you, Danielle, I want you to write my bio. I want you to write my content. This seems like it was just such a disconnect, I think, on how people see me or the value that they think that I bring.
So you have all this. So did you create any standard content, or was it all just that when you got a question, you recorded answers for them?
Yeah, it would have been, we would have done like an initial consultation. And like the idea was, before they kick off, okay, we're going to decide like, what do they want to get out of this? Like, what is the goal for the next 3 months? What are they working on? What are they struggling with? We would have put together a plan. We would have had, benchmarks like loosely. And then as they're doing this, they can reach out to me and we would have, a certain number of touch points, both again on the computer, on the app, etc. And I promoted this, in my newsletter, it was on social, I think I sent out emails, and I just don't know that I ever really connected the dots on why it would be something that people would want from me.
And, and I think that is that's such an important learning. That idea that it might be a program that, and you've said it right up front, that other people use Voxer coaching
Mhm.
and use it successfully to build their business, but your community and just your brand, this product wasn't a fit.
No. And it's interesting because the most interest I got was from other women entrepreneurs in my circle who were just like so interested, and they were like, "Oh, I love that you're doing this. Let me know how it goes." So they were like, Danielle is litmus testing this for us and experimenting it, and she can be the guinea pig for this. And, I think we both know that like when you experiment with things, it's never a bad idea because you're never going to know what's going to resonate and what's not. And it's so important to try things. And so I'm not sad that I tried, and it's still there. Like if somebody wants to work with me, it's still up on my website. I still have the offer. And maybe one day I'll just revise the messaging and see. But because it is sort of community light, right? You're not getting community with other members, but there's a community of access. So
Is there any way to integrate it into your standard offer? In other words, as you're working with a client, rather than selling this as its own program, selling it as an added benefit of working with you. In addition to our one on one meetings, you have this access in between.
yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, I never thought about that. And now that you're saying it, it's like, oh God, of course. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And it would have to be, I'd have to charge a little bit more because it is additional access. But I'm just thinking about a recent prospect that I've been talking to, and one of the concerns was the pacing, that they felt like there needed to be more touch on a regular basis. And I don't necessarily agree because I think when you're creating content, right, it's so important to have some time and space to like think through things. But maybe that is something that I can add on to some of my branding packages as a value add. And then I would just kind of raise my prices a little bit, but so they're getting more.
So they're getting, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, and I just had a conversation with somebody else who had a great idea, but her test launch went so terribly that instead of rethinking it and kind of making some adjustments, she completely walked away from the idea. And it really burned her because she's now looking at half a dozen other people who are basically doing what was her idea. And she's like, yeah, I probably should have looked at it again or looked at how to address it differently.
Yeah. And I think this is also where having like a community around you of support helps, because you can run things by people, because we get so close to it that to me, it's like the message is so clear. And I do think I shared it with some people and got feedback, but probably not as much as maybe I could have or should have. Right. So, but like, this is like great because now I'm like, oh my God, I am going to think about how do I bring this into, or is it just another option in a different way as part of my packages? And I add it to the one pager instead of it being a standalone. It's like a mini, right? It's like a mini access point to me for people who maybe can't afford a certain package that I have.
Yeah. Or it becomes kind of that interim, between initial brand launch and ongoing content. And this is kind of that bridge.
Yes. I love that. Oh my God.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited that we could kind of problem solve
I
that.
know. I love it. And that's like just proof, right? That what went wrong can turn into what went right, or the potential for something to maybe go right or reinvent or
Absolutely.
something. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? I'm going to look for updates on your webpage to see where you go with this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. And if anybody's interested, definitely let me know. Because I am going to play around with this for sure.
Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun. Again, if you guys are interested in this package or any of the branding and coaching work that Danielle does, be sure to look at morethanwordscopy.com and you can find all the information, and certainly look for Danielle Hughes on LinkedIn. Danielle, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Lorraine.
And if you've enjoyed this conversation, if you would like to find other conversations like this one, be sure to hop over to morethanafewwords.com. There you'll find our huge archive along with white papers, webinars, and so much more. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.